U5 Entertainment, U5 Worldwide, giving thanks to the fans and the people that support us. U5, we did it.
All right, guys, what's going on, everybody out there? This is Rated U5. You know it's time once again. We're here with Soni U5 this time. This is U5 News Flash. Yes! And this is episode number 17. Yes! 17. Soni U5. Number one, wanted to thank you, first of all, for coming on the show. And gosh, man, you're out there in Texas?
Yeah, San Antonio.
San Antonio. Wow. Gosh, that's a good spot, as a matter of fact. San Antonio. I think I've been there a couple times. Have you been there to the Riverwalk? I guess you are at the Riverwalk quite often, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I can't wait to get back to Texas, so now I've got a reason too. And so but you weren't always over there in Texas. You were actually born and raised where at?
Raised in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
I was born in Park Slope. My dad's from Puerto Rico, and I believe when I was a baby, from Park Slope, I moved to Puerto Rico.
And what year was that about when you actually came back from Puerto Rico to Brooklyn?
I would say 83.
83, huh? And so, and what age were you then at 83, if I may ask?
I had to be 8 years old.
You were just a kid, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you came here to Brooklyn, what part of Brooklyn were you at?
Well, I was living on Decatur between Wyckoff and Cypress.
Decatur between Wyckoff and Cypress.
Yes.
So was that technically Bushwick or was that Ridgewood?
Borderline, I think more or less it was part of like on the borderline between Brooklyn and Queens.
Yeah, you were right there on that line, huh?
Yeah.
And do you remember how things were back in 1983 during that period where you lived at?
It was a simple time. I just came from Puerto Rico. Didn't speak much English, you know. I only spoke Spanish. I learned English, I believe, just watching TV. You know, I went to PS 68. That was my elementary school right there off of I believe it was Felix and Seneca. Otherwise than that, it was simple, man. It was like music was love the music. I'd never heard rap before. I love breakdancing and stuff. And I'm down the block from my house, you know, a bunch of factories, so we would ask the guys in the factories if they could give us cardboard. So we used to battle, like I remember Decatur versus Summerfield or something like that, and it was cool times, man. Simple.
So number one, when you were in Puerto Rico, though, was hip hop popular then? Because hip hop came out in the late 60s. I don't know, in Puerto Rico, what was going on with hip hop?
My family, they listened to salsa, merengue, but I do remember around that time, ski was coming out. I just remembered that around 80, I would say 83. I did see earlier piece from ski from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
That I didn't hear the music over there was salsa, merengue. Right. You know, I was into playing with tops in Puerto Rico. Massinger, the robot.
So you grab those tops, the wooden tops, and you have to go and put the string all the way around the wrap it, and you have to go and flick it, right?
Yeah, and that and the marbles and stuff, and it was simple times back then, man.
The
I grew up
80s.
while in Puerto Rico. I grew up in La Perla, but it was pretty rough, you know.
I was gonna ask you where in Puerto Rico, and if people don't know about the Perla, that's a very dangerous area, quite frankly. It was right along El Morro, right, of Puerto
Yeah.
Rico, right there in the, El Morro.
You had to know somebody from within the neighborhood to go inside. If they didn't know you, you didn't walk in.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I've been in that spot before, and I know it's, even to this day, it's not a place you want to be at and hanging around if you don't know folks.
It was drug infested back in the days. You know, I remember police not wanting to go in. As a child, me and my brother, we seen a head roll down a hill.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember when I had a chance to visit, my first visit to Puerto Rico was in 1988. I went out there with GA, and I was in Caguas, Puerto Rico, and the first time I went to visit the motherland, because I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, in Bushwick. I guess just like you were, and so that was my first venture. And I remember the newspapers, El Noticia, and the other newspapers. They were so graphic. They just put everything out there over the killings. A lot of them drug related.
Different times, man, back then, and it's like, you know, it was. People had to survive, you know. It wasn't the jobs and the economy wasn't all that well back then, you know. People knew what they do, you know. It's not like now, you know.
Back in New York City, or on that era, it was all about walk around with a booklet of cupones, the food stamps, when they were actually paper products, and you go and have like a stack of them, like a mat of these coupons, these food stamps, right? And you had the $1, $5, maybe 10, and then you break them apart and you go to the store and buy stuff with them.
Yeah, I as a kid, I was like, "What the hell is that?" You know, like I didn't know what that was. You know.
Yeah, and you know, I have a wooden. It was kind of like a little coin, but it's like a chip, a wooden chip, and it had something to do with some sort of currency or some sort of something similar to the food stamp, but it was like a wooden coin or whatnot from Puerto Rico. I don't know which province or whatnot it was from within Puerto Rico.
All I remember
they used these.
My grandma, she used to have the book, and to me it looked like Monopoly money and stuff like that, but I don't remember that chip and stuff. I was young, man.
Yeah.
By the time when I first went out there, I'm probably was like 1, and when I came, I was young, man, you know.
Yeah. So you came in around 83. Here you are in New York City, right? The Big Apple, the big melting pot. And it must have been quite a culture shock living in an island, then all of a sudden coming here and seeing the big buildings and all these different ethnicities all around. What was going through your mind as a young kid? Were you scared? Were you nervous?
Well, I loved the music. At the time, those were great times growing up, man. You had movies, you had, you know, I moved with my dad at the time, and he was in the drug trade, so he got caught. So I ended up getting taken away, and I was put in foster care. That's how I arrived on Decatur.
Gotcha. So you were in the system in foster care for a bit then, huh?
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about that era, and you know, I was flipping through some old vinyl that I've got over here. From time to time, I'll go and throw on a vinyl or whatnot. Some folks don't even know what they are, and I got one over here. You're talking about the breakdancing. I've got one over here from the Rocksteady crew. And thanks a lot. Shout out to Bond from the Drug Crew. He's one to hook me up with these vinyl. But this one here is with the Rocksteady crew.
Yeah.
And that was one of the prominent breakdancing groups in New York City. Man, so many different breakdancing groups. You had Dynasty, you had Touch of Rock, and so you had so many of these groups battling each other, and that was a fascinating period. So what was your move? I mean, everyone had their move, right? Were you good with fancy footwork? Were you doing windmills? Were you doing backspins? What were you up to?
My brother was good in the head spin. I was good with the windmill. And I stopped doing it because I almost broke my arm. But it was a different time, man. We all had fun. Everybody was poor. Nobody judged each other. Everybody stuck together. You know, as kids, we rode our bikes. I lived where I lived. A block away was the train tracks, the freight train tracks. So you remember, they used to travel from the other side of Brooklyn to TSS on Metropolitan. So every once in a while, as kids, we used to break into them, and they had toys, they had bicycles, TVs.
Freight trains.
Yeah. And I remember I didn't know what a microwave or VCR was. You know what I'm saying? I'm straight from Puerto Rico. I was poor, you know, and my foster mother was a sweet lady. And I ended up, I didn't know what a microwave was. And I was like one of the first people on the block to have one, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, and so, you know, growing up in that era, obviously in the 80s is a pretty tough period, quite frankly, for New York City in particular, but also for our neighborhoods like Bushwick, East New York, Bronzeville, Bed-Stuy, and even moving further up where Ridgewood, Glendale, these areas. Crack cocaine hit our areas pretty hard, devastating a lot of our communities in the 80s. So did you see any of that occurring in your neighborhood up there closer to the Queens side?
Not necessarily in Ridgewood, because Ridgewood, it wasn't like that. You know what I'm saying? When you walked, you saw it on Wyckoff. You didn't really see it too much on Cypress. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see it too, but in East New York, yeah, I saw a lot of it in East New York.
So tell me do you remember your first train ride, like first going into the New York City?
I remember, man. It was, I remember I saw a piece from Webb's, and I believe it was K's, and I loved it because I loved, as a kid, I loved to draw, you know what I'm saying? And to put something small into a bigger proportion, it's, you know, I was hooked when I first saw it, you know. I loved it.
In your neighborhood, though, up there in Ridgewood, was there a lot of graffiti on the walls in the 80s in that period, or not so much?
Not so much. I had to try. When I went shopping with my foster mother on Myrtle Avenue, Knickerbocker, yeah, you would see it, you know. But not so much in Ridgewood. I'm gonna be honest. I did see, who did I see? I saw a show. I know for a fact.
Show, man, he rest in peace.
Yeah,
and I think there was a skating rink right around there. There used to be some sort of like a roller skating rink going towards like Fresh Pond Road and that area. And I think like
that far. I stayed within my neighborhood. And when I started noticing graffiti, I would venture off, you know what I'm saying? And my mom used to think I was on the block or up the block. And here it is, I'm going through Knickerbocker. I'm taking Decatur and I'm going towards Knickerbocker area and towards the Bushwick area. And it was a different world. It was, you know, I don't know if you remember, like the burned down buildings and And it was watching the graffiti on the overhead train trestles and stuff, and I loved it. I loved it.
I think that some of the things that sparked my memory back in that period, you know, especially from 1980 to 1985 ish. You had, you know, you had a movie theater on Myrtle Avenue that was there for a bit. Yeah, Woolworths was
That was
there.
my
You had Arthur Treacher's, which I think still may be there. And you had the Cuchi Frito right underneath the train station along the M train and the J train and the L train.
yeah.
There on Myrtle. And further down on the other side of Bushwick, where you just had the J and the M roll down, and that area was by Broadway. Yeah, Broadway in Myrtle. That's where I was from in Bushwick when I grew up initially on that side of Bushwick. So when you started seeing these trains whiz by with these gigantic pieces on the sides of the trains, what did you think?
I loved it. I at first, I didn't go out and go do it. I was looking, really benching and studying letters, you know, and I at first my thing was photography, so I was taking pictures and stuff.
What kind of camera were you using back then?
Man, I was.
The struggle was real, right? Tell these folks, let these folks know the struggle was real.
The long Polaroid ones, and then I would go to get them developed. I didn't really care for the instant one that came out. I didn't like it.
You didn't like the Polaroid. You probably had the 110 film, right?
Yeah. I started with that, and then I believe my mom, she bought me, I think it was a JVC camera. It was real nice, you know, and then from there I just started going all over the place, going to Delancey, Bronzeville, and taking.
And if you had the 35 millimeter of film that you had to actually pull out and then place on and then start using that little knob to start ratcheting it in, and you made a mistake and you opened it by mistake and you exposed it to the sunlight, there goes your whole film, right?
I used to honestly I had a dark room in my basement. That's how I would develop some of my pictures.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a great time, man. It was like I would say I really started around 88 around that. I didn't come up with the name Soner. I would say I wrote Rain 1, RANE, and then I took up the name Soner after Soni's death.
Time you hit high school, what high school did you go to?
I went to FK Lane.
Oh, so you was in a spot where there were a lot of graffiti artists over there.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the graffiti artists that you went to school with, or
yeah,
crews?
School with Arc, Moyo, GR, Nag, Joke Top, Rod USK, Pucho, Brass, Tay, Mech5, Cryer, Keck from AOT, Lord U5, KI U5, NSK, Rusk, TA7.
Wow. TA7 crew. Shout out to Saz and those folks from TA7. Hit me up.
And not only that, I was hanging out with writers as well. I was hanging out with, at the time, Ray BWH was piecing. In junior high school, I went to junior high school in East New York. And I went to junior high school with GRU5 and NAGU5.
And who you fight? GR and who?
GR
And who?
and NAG
Gotcha,
U5.
Nag. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to GR. What's going on, guys? GR, Nash, the whole team out there, Rod.
And I just basically hung out with a lot of different people, there was you had writers from all over the place to go
Yeah.
there.
So did you ever tag up or piece there at the big wall there, Frankie K Lane?
Yeah, that was later. Basically I started I would say like around 88. That was like around 88 was the last of the train movement. So I was doing like insides and stuff. And I like around 89, I didn't see much, going on the side of the trains or any insides. They cleaned most of it off.
Yeah,
But
that's
I
the big
remember
push
in
there.
Lane we were all tagging and we go bombing and stuff like that.
Yeah, so who was your running partners? Who you out there painting with?
First, I would say it was GR and Nags. They had a crew in IS 302. It started NSW. Then from there, I met Nash and Koner. This is around what 89. I met Nash and Koner, and they were killing the lines, and the street bombing was crazy. You guys were the caps, like this big,
Yeah.
Niker, Nini, bombing Endor, bombing Atlantic Avenue, you know. I think watching you guys, it was just wow, that's something I want to do, you know what I'm saying? And I remember I bought my first pilot, and then after a while that got boring. So I was like, you know what? And in Lane, I was hanging out also with Zep U5, and Zep always had a nice crisp uni tip, you know.
Yeah.
And I started getting those, and then at first it started off, with vandalism, but I love the art form, and I'm gonna be honest with you too. I learned a lot watching Koner, Nash, and CS.
CS, TFK crew, right? TFK
Yes.
Tax. Yeah,
Yes.
shout out to CS and all those folks that are out there around the Euclid Avenue area, East New York, around RQ5's stomping grounds. So yeah, it's Stress as well, and all the
Because
other.
my aunt and uncle lived on the same block as CS, and I would go I met him briefly when I was a kid. I didn't know him. I met him briefly. I was on the rooftop and just taking pictures, and I think he saw me and stuff like that. But I was a young kid, and
He was young.
yeah, I was quiet. You know what I'm saying? I really didn't say much because my English wasn't really that great. But you know,
So how did you pass your time in your junior high school and high school years when you started being introduced to graffiti? Like, what was your typical day like? I mean, were you hanging out with your friends? Were you just into the
yeah,
music or the
no, I hung
breakdancing?
out with Nags, GR, um, Rune, RO, and who else? Joke Top. He was from Top Crew. That was Brass WTO's cousin, and Cert One from Top Crew.
Oh yeah, I've always wanted to meet those cats from Top Crew. So shout out to Sir and the rest of the Top Crew. Hit me up if you want.
So I hung out pretty much with a lot of people. It was a melting pot of writers and stuff.
Yeah, you were exposed to a lot of folks, especially where you were at.
Yeah.
Now, in Bushwick, I know around that era, show was really getting up in the area, along with DG, may he rest in peace, and Sept
I
as
used to
well.
see G up in 85, 85.
Hmm.
DG was around in 85. I remember, around that time I was looking at CS's stuff, and I would say my first layup, because I lived in Halsey, but I was back and forth in East New York. I was with my family. That's how I went to IS 302, and going to Halsey layup was the first for me, you know?
Halsey layup. That was
Yeah,
our spot, man. There in
yeah,
the States, that was our spot. Uh,
yeah.
how about places like out there in the city in Manhattan, like Bowery Street? That was another spot, Bowery.
I didn't really like. I took pictures. I would go to the Wall of Fame every once in a while, but I didn't venture off. Sometimes I not really in Manhattan. I would just hit the Wall of Fame and I would go up to the Bronx because I was
Hmm.
always taking pictures of Bio, BG, Nicer, Per, Nomad. Uh, I like the stuff that they were doing up there. You know what I'm saying? It was like I didn't like in Brooklyn. I didn't really see too many productions. I think the only person that I did see do production like two-on-two pieces was Koner and Nash and 2L.
And Kona was he still riding around in the ice cream truck at that point?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was hanging out. I was hanging out with them in the ice cream truck. That's how I met HD back in the day. I hung out also with Do. Do used to bomb and drive the ice cream trucks.
Really, yeah.
Yeah,
Shout out to HD as well.
no doubt.
Yeah, and that was a pretty interesting period. The '80s was awesome. The '90s started changing things drastically in the graffiti game, obviously, and 1989 is when we lost Sony and Slick. May they rest in peace. As a matter of
Yes,
fact, here to my right, this is the jacket that belonged to Sony. I've got his jacket still. And he was one of the earlier members of my chapter 3, along with Arion and Zan. May they rest in peace as well. Niker, um, Dav, HD, and the others. So then, that prompted me to go write my book, U5, The Truth Behind the Lies. If you guys don't get a copy of that, you guys need to find that online and pick up U5, The Truth Behind the Lies. It's a good memoir about growing up in Bushwick, Brooklyn, and about all some of the escapades that U5 went through, along with the whole scores of other artists. So this is the segue, so to speak, on how you actually came across Daniel Gomez, aka Sony. How did that transpire?
I was when I lived on Decatur Street. I was always traveling and stuff like that, and at the time, I saw earlier tags of you and Audi and stuff, and I believe he was walking down the block. And I used to just, you know, in my travels, just walk around the neighborhood, work my way to Bushwick and stuff like that, and he befriended me. At first, I didn't know he wrote Sony and stuff, so you know, I became friends with him, and my mom, my foster mother at the time, she was very leery about who I hung out with, or bringing people around the house and stuff. But he was a genuine person, man. He was a good guy, man, and he started. I started hanging out with him, and basically, he was like a mentor, like a good friend. I didn't know he wrote graffiti. You know what I'm saying? And I remember one time I asked him, I was like, "Man, who are these guys?" And he looks at me funny, and it was a tag of you and Audi. And he goes, what do you know about them? I was like, nah, I really like their style, you know, and the way they tag up their style, you know, and then I remember I found Wilson Freight. I found that by accident, to be honest with you. I didn't go there with anybody, but I found it by accident. And when I went there, it was like a concrete black book, man. It was just
Yeah.
everything had their different flavor. You know what I'm saying? Arc had the style with the characters, Audi with the calligraphy wild style, GA. I saw a piece with you, Nash and Koner on the side, Jack, BTP. He was from Bronzeville. He writes up J-Lo YNN now. Everybody had their flavor, and it was like, for me, it was like in my childhood playground. It's like where I got to sit down and actually, I'm gonna be real with you. I used to bench there. I used to look at everybody and I learned from everybody. You know what I'm saying? But I hung out with RO1, and he was a student of Nash. Believe it or not, he was a student of Nash. So whatever he learned from Nash, he was teaching me as well. You know what I'm saying? I remember Ansky. Ansky used to hang out with RO, and you know, it was just watching what everybody else was doing, but giving it my own flavor. You know what I'm saying? And it was good time, man. And then I remember I was back and forth to Puerto Rico, and I was supposed to meet up with Soni, and that was around, I think the last time I seen him was around October. I seen him in October. And after that, I didn't see him. And then, you know, I came back home and my mom told me that, you know, honestly, she had the newspaper and stuff. And I believe it was Ash who came to the house to let my mom know and stuff. And it was hard for me because after that, I really didn't want nothing to do with Graph. I really did. But I was, you know, at the time I was writing Rain, Rane. And at that time I was transitioning. I didn't want to be Sony too. You know, I love that brother, man. I love that brother. And I wanted a piece of him to always be with me. So I kept the SON and I put the E and the R. So it just, right after Sony's death, it stuck.
So that's how you came up with the name
Yeah.
Sony. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sony was a character, man. He loved the Miami Dolphins. He loved Dan Marino. He'd always walk around with his damn
Did you see the
greenish
picture?
turquoise color, that jersey for the Miami Dolphins. Always with that damn, and the little Patriots cap, you know, the little cap, a little flap.
With the hat. Sony got me that for my birthday.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was, you know, I'm gonna miss. I miss that brother, man. It was like I remember I graduated high school, and I had my kids, and I just thought about him because if it wasn't, he was a great human being, man. You know, I remember one time I was a little knucklehead, and I was kind of being like a little fresh to my foster mother. And he kind of pulled me like a big brother should do. You know, he pulled me to the side. He goes, this lady, you know, she loves you like a son, you know, and basically, you know, as a big brother would do, you know, whip somebody's ass, you know, and Sony, he was real. He said what he said, you know, there was no lie in it, you know, and I respected him, you know. I didn't have older big brothers to look up to, you know what I'm saying? I had cousins, but but this human being that, at the time I was in foster care, and I believe, what you lack in life, as a gift from God, he gives you people right along your journeys, you know what I'm saying? And he, if it wasn't from him, I didn't take my high school seriously. I wanted to drop out. I'm gonna be honest with you, and he was one of the reasons why I never did.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
when
he had a good heart, man. That guy, Sony.
yeah, yeah, and he was like my big brother, so I always kept that in me. You know what I'm saying? And I never got to meet his parents and stuff till I remember 2012 when it was the first time, man, and I got emotional, man, because I could see him and them, like
Yeah,
Sam.
especially
Yeah,
his brother Jose, right? His brother, him, they look very, very similar. Shout out to his
and I
brother
could see it.
Jose
I could
Gomez,
see,
the whole Gomez family, Samuel, his younger brother, Sandra, his sister. They're a great family, We still keep in contact
and the
with
way
them.
his mother is, that's how my foster mother was, a very loving, giving lady. And she was, I didn't find out my foster mother was a foster kid herself. And a lot of people that take on foster kids, they do it for the money, they get from the state. But as a child, as a in my childhood, man, I have no bad memories. I went to the movies. She took me to the toy store, to the Chinese toy stores on Myrtle with the Voltrons, the Transformers,
Yeah, that's what I'm
and
talking
and she gave me love, man. A mother's love, and I didn't know that. And and I would say, there was a piece of me when he passed away. It kind of like a piece of me passed away as well. You know what I'm saying? It was life, man. We laughed, we joked, we hugged, we cried, you know, and then when I saw that picture, I really don't like to watch that news clipping. You know what I'm saying? It upsets me, and until this day, I don't watch it. But you
about. It
know,
was it was a hard hit for us, right? Because we lost two people at the same time. We lost Ruben
mhm,
Fernandez, may he rest in peace,
yeah,
aka Slick.
yeah,
And he was a popular graffiti artist in his own right, out there, Empire Boulevard, that neck of the woods, tagging
yeah.
up
I
and
used to
his
see,
crew Owa out with the salt and hanging out with 501 crew and other prominent crews from Manhattan to the Bronx.
yeah, I used to see them on Linden Boulevard in Bronzeville. They were up, you know, and shout out to 501 crew too. OS, Fogs, Namsky, um, you know, and then from then I kind of like I was quiet to myself, but I hung out with GR and the rest of the U5 crew and multiple writers, you know what I'm saying? And but it was like when I was hanging out with the U5 crew, you know, you know, they always looked out, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have, it was a melting pot of writers, and we just hung out, and then over time I started getting better and better, and then it was the clean train movement, and I started doing trains. I was started off in the neighborhoods, but I went to the clean train movement. I don't know what it was. It was like to me it was like an adrenaline rush,
So when the trains were formerly clean, it was the end of 1989. We lost Sony in November of 1989,
Yeah,
and all of a
80
sudden, behold,
sides.
the
I
buff
didn't.
was on, right? Yeah. So I mean, how do you feel like you just missed a great opportunity to be a part of that last era, those last few years. It's like, damn, you know, because now it's a difference. It's different from coming across these majestic, huge steel carts with all these different riders, and you're kind of looking and say, "Oh, I know that person, I know that guy, or I'm gonna buff that guy, or
Yeah.
whatever." And just going through all the pieces, taking photographs. But you get a clean train, you just, you're being creative in your own way, but it's not like you're coming across all these different
I was
riders.
supposed to meet you guys. I remember I was telling Danny, I was like, I would like to meet them, but when I came back, it was too late. It was too late.
Yeah.
And but I knew GR, I knew Nags, and I just hung out with everybody. Everybody was cool, man. When I first met Ark in Lane, man, the brother had some nice stuff in the Black Book. Very, very humble. A lot of writers, they have these big heads, and they're full of themselves. And I remember Ark took me to his grandmother's house in the basement. He did my Black Book. It was me, him, and Zep, and he was very humble. And I gravitated to that. That's what I gravitate to. It's not your talent; it's just people having good, being good human beings.
You had a good chemistry with a lot of the guys from U5.
I
Ark was very good, and it's all right. Ark was a good, talented writer back in those days. I think there was one point where he did some artwork on. He did like a large poster and also some clothing. I don't know if it was for a singing group or a dancing group. It might have been two in a room, if I recall correctly. But I know it was one of these Latin hip hop groups, whatnot, and he was doing some artwork on some clothing for them. We had these big parties. The parties we had there in Ark's basement, oh my gosh, man. It would be like, you have little by little, you got chapters coming from Queens, chapters coming from, Brooklyn, Manhattan, everyone's coming.
Actually, I met
parties. It was really
before I met any person in U5, I met Audi and Ark. I believe it was the spring of '89. I met them. I had a good friend of mine that lived over there on Pine Street, and they were coming down the block, and they introduced. That's when Audi had the little shaved side with the long hair in the back and stuff.
oh, yeah.
Ark was always Ark, and I met them through my friend and stuff.
I probably had my tail at that point from back in the days.
But I was supposed to meet you guys. I remember I told Danielle, I was like, I would like to meet them, and he was going to introduce me because at the time I was practicing in my Black Book, and my hairstyle was pretty good, and when I first started, I learned a lot watching CS, Nash, and Conan.
Tell me about your experience with Arion U5. I know you knew him.
Oh man. Oh man.
What kind of person was Arion?
Years ago, a friend of mine, he was Mech 5's cousin, Cryer. And at the time, he took me to hang out. I think he was hanging out with Nuke, Tech, and Arion was there. And I believe it was Scuff, but before Scuff wrote Scuff, he wrote Cast. And it was that house where Tech had with the little terrace on the second
floor. Yeah, it had a terrace in the front, and I think the name of the block was Arion Place, if I recall correctly.
Yes. And Tech had a little piece around the corner, like literally walking distance, like him and LY had a piece right there. And I ended up hanging out with Arion. Check this out. And I hung out with him when I was a kid. And then all of a sudden, years go by, and I was hanging out with Arion. You introduced me to him in 2012 again, and then all of a sudden I started hanging out with him, and then basically I was like, "Yo, I think I hung out with you as a kid," because you ever get those memories where you remember, and
Right.
I have this one specific memory. I'm looking at Tex over here. I think Nuke was standing over here, and then Arion was right there. And I was like, "Did you hang out with Tech?" And he goes, "Yeah." I was like, "In that house with the second floor terrace?" He goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Bro, I used to hang out with you." So it's like, it was like, holy smokes, you know?
Yeah, they used to be into music together. Tech, and I was at the basically DJing. Everyone started getting into DJing himself a bit. Tech as well, GA as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was that era. So
Not
there
only
you
that,
were.
in those eras, the earlier years, I was looking at cats like Beck, DG, Show, uh, Rec when he was alive. There was a lot of writers, man. A lot. Sept, Dean
Dean.
from Bushwick. It was a melting pot, man. You had
Yeah.
PG, Peak. Uh, I used to like OE back in the day. When I first came from Puerto Rico, I used to like his O's and his E's, the way he did it, you know?
Yeah. One of a kind style. OE, O English.
And
Yeah.
I
So
would
then,
say like 90. I was 90. I started doing the trains. You know what I'm saying? I was learning from everybody. I was good. I was talented. Um, I perfected my blockbuster, and then from my blockbuster, I started doing semi-wild style. Um, as I was a kid, I remember being on the stoop watching Too Ill uh, do black books, and I was a kid, and I would walk up to his stoop and just watch him. You know, he was like a neighborhood writer, well known in the graph world, and I would just absorbing everybody, the different style, and taking little bits and pieces here, there, but I gravitated to a lot of people, man, and and started doing new trains. And this was around 1990 and 91. I started my boy Cryer took me to Manhattan, and we bombed the West Side Highway and stuff. And
I did that one time with Death with 3BR and XL. A few
yeah,
folks. One time did that track. That was pretty interesting.
we were bombing around. We started in the Village, and then we worked our way up to the Javits Center on the West Side Highway.
Hmm.
That's where we did. And then we got raided, and found out that it wasn't a cop. It was actually a work bum that worked for the MTA. I used to see him. He tried to act like he was a cop, but he used to write Dencac BYI. So I was like, "I know you. You the guy with the broom that cleans up holes in the train station. You ain't no cop." So
There you are, right? That
yeah,
that,
it was a
ladies
funny
that room
thing,
was crazy.
And then every once in a while, I saw him, and I would see him in Myrtle, see him on the J line, just doing his job and stuff. And I started doing trains, and my first train, I did it with in the clean train movement was with Bruce. And
Bruise. All right.
yeah, and believe it or not, man, very humble dude, man. We were, we were in rival crews, but he was very respectful. you know, with the whole Sony and Slick thing, you know, very humble. And he used to hang out in East New York. Nobody knew that, but he used to hang out in East New York. And a lot of writers didn't come to East New York. But I remember him hanging out with Koner, Nash, me, my boy Rico. He used to live on Alabama over there. And he was a cool dude, man. I just, you know, I,
Yeah, we know that there was a lot of friction between U5 crew and JA when we were warring. There was a lot of controversy as far as like how did Sony and Slick, pass because we weren't sure whether they got struck by a train. Was it an accident? Was there foul play involved? And since we were warring with JA and Ecstasy crew, then you had his boys. You had RIS crew with Bruce and RIS crew and
but
AOK.
I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I hung out with him, and I didn't see no animosity. I never got jumped, and it was like he was a good dude, man, and respect with me. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Back in those times, I always carried a pistol. And I, you know, as an adult now, I don't glorify no kids to do that. You know what I'm saying? But at the time, I was always packing, and I never saw no disrespect. And everybody knew who I was. You know what I'm
So then
saying?
you were U5. So you were a U5 member at that point, and you were hanging
And
around
I'm
with
gonna be honest with you. You know, how what really, you know, got to me about Bruce, and we became close. When I met him, he showed me nothing but love, and what did it for me was he shared his condolences for Sony and Slick. And he was a good human being. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah.
that to me, he came with respect. I give him respect. You know what I'm saying? And
Not only were we U5 members trying to figure out like what actually happened, because there was a lot of different reports on TV that we saw with our own eyes, and how the story changed and evolved, and the families of Sony had hired a really prominent law firm from Harry Lipsig's office. I think it might have been Harry Lipsig himself, which is a very very prominent lawyer, attorney.
yeah,
And so we were just trying to get to, the bottom of the story to find out the truth. And so there were different accounts that were told by the conductor of the train, and it didn't match, some of the stories that from other witnesses or people that were questioned there on the scene. It was just a lot of different stories. So we were just trying to get to the truth.
yeah,
And then that kind of prompted Jim Dwyer, who used to be a reporter for the New York Newsday newspaper. He came out with his book, Subway Lives. And
yeah,
that book, he had interviewed U5 members, including myself, and I think Audi and Ark and some others. And when he released his book Subway Lives, and I read through it, I said, "No, this is not the Sony I knew. Like the way he spoke, the way he carried on by himself." But I knew that Jim
Tony
Dwyer
was
had
a
some stories
genuine
to
dude.
tell. It was just the way he presented Sony and Slick. I didn't like that, and that's the reason why I actually wrote my book, U5: The Truth Behind the Lies, because his book was
Yeah,
called Subway Lives. Mine was called The Truth Behind the Lives. But
yeah,
the 80s was, it was a tough hit, and I think, now, we accept the fact that it was an accident. It was a horrible accident that claimed the lives of two that we loved. And as far as like any animosity, as far as like the old beef with the graffiti, I mean, that's something that I don't carry that grudge forward. That's not me. I mean, I think
you
that
know,
we've let that go. The 80s was an incredible era, though, because there was a lot of things that happened during the 80s. As a matter of fact, right next door to me, we had a gentleman by the name of Junior Jones, who was actually a boxer that, rose in the ranks and became a Golden Glove champion. And so shout out to Poison, Ginger Jones, and we had a lot of things that were coming out. You had Atari that was coming out to go and play games, and I've got a couple of handhelds here. That's I don't know, sure if
I
you're
had the one on the left. I had the one on the left, and I had the
the
single one,
Donkey
Donkey
Kong.
Kong Jr.
Yeah.
And
So I mean,
I think I
this
might
is
have
what
had
we grew up on. We grew up on these handheld of games and whatnot, and then graffiti was another thing. And aside from that, in the streets in the '80s, it was nothing but really the old gangs, the motorcycle gangs was kind of tapering off at that point, but had a lot of gangs in the streets. Graffiti was now from the trains onto the streets. So now there was a
yeah.
lot of crews out there, a lot of wars that were occurring on the streets that came from the trains. Now they were on the streets. But yeah, what were some of the popular graffiti artists you saw during that period in the '90s, the early
Uh,
'90s?
when I was going to Lane, you had a melting pot, but it was the year that Poem moved into the neighborhood over by Frank and K Lane. That's when everything changed. At that time, it was. I remember the old pieces. It was Demer, Riot, Enough, the old memorial piece for Mirage, Mike UR1 that passed away,
Yeah.
from Chi, and they were nice pieces. Don't get me wrong, they were nice pieces. But when Poem came in, he brought everybody from Manhattan to the Bronx, all the subway art people, and at that time I was doing trains with Bruce, and I would say my second year into it, I did a train with my boy Speed KRT, and we got raided by Vandal Squad and stuff,
Mm.
and it was weird because at the time there was a writer. I'm not gonna mention the snitch's name. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna give him no cheap clout or whatsoever. But he
Right.
ended up snitching on me, uh, Nash, and Joe Top from Top Crew, and a
Mm.
couple of other people. And I remember Nash went to Astoria. I was doing the 111 layup at the time, and I well, it's just it came out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? They knew where we was gonna be at a certain time. The only ones that didn't get rated was, I would say, Crier BKA was hitting the crescent layup with SIC Crew. And they're the only ones that, because nobody knew where they were going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I knew, but I didn't say nothing. But I got rated, and I remember from Decatur, I got sent to a foster home in Long Island. So that was a whole different ball game. But at that time, when I first moved to Long Island, you had riders come into FK Lane. You had Serve, you had Bio, you had T Kid, Stay High, you had Lumit, Poem, Dero, Dill. You had a lot of great heavy hitters, and that came, and it was like, wow. It was like I knew who they were, but it was a new flavor, like kids from Brooklyn didn't see what the Bronx was doing, and so you had Manhattan people, the Bronx, coming to FK Lane to do pieces back then. So
But shout out to Enough and Smurfy from Instant Fame Crew,
yeah,
and
man.
Vec
I'm a
4 and Sasha that used to put out the graphic
video.
scene explicit language, the GSXL magazine. Shout out to them. I remember back in the days when GA was putting on his Graph News magazine. We used to actually sell the Graph News magazine out of Sony's dad's store that they had in Hegeman Street back in Eastern Europe back in the days.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had a magazine. I had a magazine, and due to circumstances, I ended up losing it. But
Um,
yeah, I had those. I had your magazine. I had Can't Control, Undercover, and some other ones. And those are the ones you did with GA, right?
yeah, I started with the GA, the Graph News with GA,
Yeah.
and then after a while, I created my own magazine called Fine Print. I did that a
Mhm.
couple issues, and then I was in the military, so then the popular dog I used to go and tag out Inky. I used to put her on the neighborhoods. I used to actually do illustrations in
Yeah.
on a Post newspaper. I think it was in South Carolina, and I had an Inky cartoon strip run just like Peanuts, Charlie Brown. I had Inky run for like a year on the Post newspaper in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and that was a
Yeah.
great thing. And then afterwards, when we launched the U5 Enterprises company, we wanted to go and create another, I guess, mascot for the company, and that's when we had the idea of coming up with Alley Cat U5, and Alley Cat. I thought of Alley Cat because one of my cousins who passed away, his name was Johnny Fuentes. He used to
Hmm.
go and doodle and draw, and he used to go. He did a cartoon about this cool cat named Alley Cat that he would transform into like some sort of like a vigilante going out there and stalking people for crime, and so I remembered his drawings, and I incorporated that within our mascot Alley Cat. And if you see some of my photos and videos for me being around different countries and rocking pieces, I got pieces rocked in Myanmar and Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, all around the place. I'd go and put
That's how I found you. I was like, I wasn't too big on multimedia, and I'm gonna be honest. I was like, I want to see if they had old pictures of U5 and stuff like that. And so I looked up U5, and your book came up, and I remember, and then I started seeing the videos of you overseas. So I
yeah.
was like, this guy is either, he's probably, served the country. I kind of knew it because the way you carried yourself, and all of a sudden I did the Facebook thing, and I didn't really care for it. You know what I'm saying? And then little by little, long and behold, I found everybody. I found you, and then out of the woodwork, everybody, Art came out, GR, Nash, and it was like a Niker, Arion, everybody started coming out of the woodwork. And we all used to play around, joke around on the Facebook, crack jokes on each other.
Yeah.
And it was cool, man. It was
Yeah,
cool.
shout out to all the other members that used to come to some of these U5 reunions that we hold. We started holding them in 2008. The first one was at the South Street Seaport in Manhattan in 2008. That's when the book was launched. And
Yeah.
we had the old school U5 members. We had Urban. We had Jest. Shout out to Jest U5. Shout out to folks like CE. Dover. May he rest in peace.
Yes. Yeah.
And just a whole array of folks that will come out. Skate from KOB,
Yes.
crew over there on Linden. Shout out to him. So it was pretty interesting. Here I was in my neighborhood in Brooklyn in Bushwick, watching the original MSD with Rec, like you mentioned, also known NONE. IP, shout out to IP, shout out to Raheem EP, and also Lec, LEC.
Yeah.
Playing. I remember playing handball with Lec. His tall ass. We used to go play handball right there in the school right across the street from me on Wilson Avenue and Cornelia.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward over to 2001, September 11th. The
Oh,
plane
wait up. No,
strike
no, no, no. I gotta say something though. My graph in Long Island. So
Okay.
I get busted and I'm sent to Long Island. So long and behold, the one of the foster lady, she loved art. She was into painting, and she saw all my art supplies and my spray paint and my black book, and she supported it. And basically, I didn't find when I moved into that house in Long Island, at the time, there was this lady making my bed, cleaning my room. I was like, what the hell is going on? I'm a poor kid from uh, Ridgewood and East New York, and what the hell is going on? And I found out my foster mother, she was related to that store, PC Richard and Son. She's one of the family members. So me going to Long Island, I had a stereo in my room. I had a fridge in my room. I didn't have to go walk to school anymore. I had a little Honda Elite scooter to go to school, and all of a sudden I get a Home Depot truck dropping off a pallet of paint with Krylon and Rusto with assorted colors.
No
So
way.
I ended up getting worse. You know, I started in Long Island. They have yards that don't have fences. I started walking into the yards. I had Bruce out there one year, going inside the yards with me, just killing the trains. And I remember I met Muse from GZ Crew. He was out there in Brentwood. Brentwood, a lot of people slept on Long Island because it was a lot of rich history in Long Island. You have people from Queens, Nation of Creation. You had X-Men doing pieces out there. I saw Cope KD out there. I saw Says from the Bronx out there. It was a rich history. And as I was at that time, I was progressing, getting better and better. I was doing pieces along the line, and I just didn't stop. Every day, I was bombing with my friend Rod, HRT, Zaire, HRT, Pound, HRT, Def 3. Who else? But it was a lot of rich history there, and they were affiliated from that HRT crew from Miami. And at the time, the prez of the crew is A-Bomb FC and stuff. You have A-Bomb, Jinx, Skull 4, um, Kohler. Yeah, you had a lot of writers, but it was basically my brother Zaire. He was in the Marine Corps, and he was coming back and forth, and he was doing pieces with us, and that's how you know, me and him had a great relationship, and we started piecing and just tearing a lot of things up, and basically, at that time, I was still considered a minor. So with foster kids, they get lawyers when they get busted doing graffiti and stuff like that. They get a slap in the wrist and stuff. But at that time, it was crazy because that's when it was changing. You know, a lot of graffiti was going crazy in the 5 boroughs. So they were statewide. They was changing things. You know, and we ended up getting busted, and basically it was on Newsday. It was on Newsday, and it was this
Newsday as the newspaper,
yeah,
Newsday.
yeah, Newsday and Channel 12 News at the time. And it was embarrassing because, you know, my foster parents found out, and I had to chill out because I was almost at the end of finishing high school, and I wanted a career in the military. So
Hold that thought for a second. I just want to let folks know that it's just joining us. This is Rated U5. I'm over here interviewing Soner U5 right now. So if you're just coming on board right now, thanks for joining us, and let's continue with this interview. And back in the Bushwick days, there was a couple other crews I wanted to mention that you might have heard of or might have come across, namely the Chosen Few. Does that ring a bell to
Yeah,
the CF
yeah.
crew? Well, there was one guy over there who's now DJing. His name is Kayak, Kiac.
I seen when I lived in Cyprus, I seen kayak up. GA didn't live too far from me, and
Right.
Rad didn't live too far from me. I lived on Decatur. I don't know what it was. It George Street or something like that.
I think it was either George or Stephen, one of the two.
Yeah, one of those blocks. And my friend Ki, he was. I was like, hey, I really want to meet GA and Rad, and then all of a sudden, I moved to Long Island and we parted ways. But Ki started hanging out with my brother in East New York.
Well, Kayak became a DJ, and he's actually DJing now. And folks that want to go and catch Kayak and listen to his music, I'm gonna play a little bit off my phone here. You get an example. He likes more techno. This is his style. So shout out to Kayak, U5 out there doing his thing. You can catch him on iCloud, and you can also catch him on Twitch TV, and SoundCloud. Pick up some merch as well. He goes by DJ Carius. K-U-A-R-I-U-S. That's DJ Carius, aka Kayak U5. It's kind of neat, following other U5 members doing their thing and whatnot. So, going back to September 11th, was there any effect on you? Where were you when that occurred?
Well, I was close with the firehouse. I knew a couple of people, and in the firehouse over there on Knickerbocker, and right next to the police precinct.
Right.
So by the time I went over there, I was already in the military, and by the time I went there, they were already gone. They were already. I believe after the first plane hit, they were already over the bridge.
And thank you for your service as well. For your service to the Marine Corps.
Thank you. And I went to the house, and basically everybody was gone, and over there. And at that time, I was starting my family. My oldest daughter was born. And then I heard the Pentagon was hit. I took at the time, I took my family from New York to Georgia and stuff. And I right after that, I went back to Camp Lejeune. And basically, that's when it all started. But I remember, it was quiet. You didn't see no planes overhead for, that time. It was very sad, but the beautiful thing is people stuck together. That's when the nation came together and put all their differences aside and just, I miss that. I hate the division.
I was in New York City as well, and I was actually a U.S. Army recruiter. I was recruiting in New York City, right back at home, and when that happened, there was a hell of a line, to join, because there was a lot of, obviously a lot of patriotic people that were really, really upset and angered by what happened. So yeah, it's pretty shocking, what happened, and we just observed September 11th just recently, and terrible time for our country.
At the time, I was in the reconnaissance Marines and stuff at that time, and I knew once I saw those towers fall, I knew where we were going. I knew it.
So as far as graffiti is concerned, who were your favorite piecers? And anyone that you kind of like gravitated towards and said, man, that guy's got some, I like his style. It could have been maybe someone like Poes or maybe I don't know,
I'll be
Dondi,
honest with
old
you.
school, or
Uh,
what's your preference anyhow? New school or old school?
when I was starting out, I liked a lot of CS's stuff. Too Ill. I learned a lot from Nash and Conan and Audi and stuff. At the time, J Lo YNN, he used to write Jack, but he over years, man, his evolution has gotten guy is awesome. I liked Nicer, Per, Ski, Soz, Bex from Puerto Rico.
Hmm.
Uh, Enough
Shout out
I and
enough. Yeah.
Riot RH Walnuts and
Shout out to the chat crew, TAT crew, Pernum, FX crew as well.
yeah. But they were like did I Nomad I loved his stuff, man, because he did characters and he did these letters that were like ahead of their time, man. But yeah, man, I started doing back and forth. I started doing pieces and stuff when I was out of the military, in the military. You know, I never stopped. But once I got rank, basically I had to chill out, man. You know, you didn't
Right.
play around. But
Tell me about that story about your encounter with the Wiz.
oh man, good dude, man. I was behind. It was '93. I was behind Franklin K. Lane, and I'll be honest with you. I thought he was Vandal Squad. You know, big older gentleman. You know, and I thought he was Vandal Squad, and he introduced himself, man, and cool as hell, man. I had some paint. I was like, come on, Papa, let's get it in. You know what I'm saying? Very nice dude, man. I hung out with him a couple of times, and basically, I ended up going into the military, and I didn't see him again. But he was a very nice dude, man. I learned a lot from him, man. You know,
And that's
great
what
person.
was his name? I said the Wiz, but what did he write?
Is
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 IZ the Wiz? Is the Wiz?
PMB, and he was a good dude, man. He was humble, even Too Ill, man. Too Ill was, you go up to them while they painted, they didn't think they were better than anybody, man. They were humble. They signed your black book. And you know, I was just grateful that, you know, they were around, you know what I'm saying, in my journey in life, you know. Uh Overall good dude, man. Overall
Hmm.
good dude. I like, to me, he was like one of the first ones that when I was traveling taking pictures, and he, you know, I used to see a lot of him, Bo, Satch, Saw. Um, Man, he was just one of my, honestly, he was one of my favorite old school writers. And then while I was out in Long Island, I held a job down in this is when I was younger. I held a job down in Home Depot, and I worked with Rolio. He was part of the original TC5, the Crazy Five. That's with Blade, Comet, and all of them. And I befriended him. And if you look on my page, on my Instagram page, I have a piece that he did on it's a whole car. And I believe he told me Poem at the time, who was young, helped him out with that piece, and a picture of him standing in front of a train. So, you know, I was part of his crew, the Crazy Squad.
Huh.
So, you know, I always had a little ties with the Bronx and stuff. And Long Island, you had uh, Tag TNC. He was from the Bronx, and he He was in the UA crew with Scene. Scene used to be out in Long Island as well. A lot of history in Long Island. You had at the time, the early 90s, you had AU crew, Abstract Universal. I knew Haas. He bombed a lot. Who else? Odesk was around when I was around. Remy. He was in that TV show, Unique Auto Sports and stuff. But he was a good he was a piecer, man. He was good, man. And that's a lot of people slept on cats from Long Island. You had dudes from Nassau that were burning, man. You had I remember I used to see Ave, C's, SWK, Paid. I used to even see Mad Max out in Long Island. You know what I'm saying? Mirage. I found old tags of Stress TF in Long Island.
How about Duel? Was he out there as well? Duel, Duel.
Duel was.
NCI?
I used to see Duel on the highways and in Queens. Right now, as we speak, like I tell him all the time that I see his whole cars out here in San Antonio, Saint TMR. I see his whole cars down here. Reps, Jim. Who else? I seen Ghost down here. I seen his stuff. Giz. I seen Giz's stuff down here.
Shout out to Giz.
Shout out.
Shout out to Rep too.
Yeah, but you know, right now, as we speak, the graph scene down here, it's these kids are very talented, man. Let me tell you that, like, from where we were in the 90s, now, man, they're doing huge burners, characters, productions. You know, from what I've seen down here, I saw RTD crew. I seen I don't know if this is an offshoot of TK or Kai's, but I seen these cats. One cat called Risk, and he pushes TNR. I don't know if they have any New York ties or the RTD crew, but I did see them in the early years in California with CBS each other. But
the chosen few. And then VM9, right? Came after VM9, Vandal Mode 9 with Hal and the others.
Yeah. But he was a Queens writer from the 7 line and stuff.
Man. What about what do you think Graph needs now? I mean, you've seen everything change, right? You had the graffiti artists on the trains moving to the streets, then all of a sudden you had the big push with street artists, which, you know, some of them claimed to be graffiti artists. And then it was a big back and forth between graffiti artists and street artists. And this is world round, whether you're talking Banksy or Robo. So street artists is popular, right? In Bushwick, you got the Bushwick Collective doing these beautiful, large murals. But then, you know, you got folks ragging their stuff, ragging these murals and whatnot. So what do you think? What do you think is missing from graffiti now, or what is graffiti lacking?
I think the older generation didn't teach, like, I learned a lot from Nash and other older writers. You know what I'm saying? I had Generation 1 writers, Rolio, basically school me on stuff. I had Nash school me. And I think what happened was, over time, the older writers didn't teach the new ones, you know, the rules.
Right.
And basically, in my day, it was weird. You didn't have sticker packs. You didn't have the subway maps. You didn't have the mail stickers and all of that. To me, that's new to me. but a lot of people that are hitting these walls that are portraying themselves to be writers of the era of the trains and stuff. I remember that I don't put no names, but I used to document graffiti and take pics. And there's a writer that started writing, I would say, mid 90s. And I think with the platform with Instagram and Facebook, a lot of these writers are lying. Because I see the comments and I'm gonna be honest with you, a lot of them wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that I was all city and all of that, but people, I do ring bells and people remember me. You know what I'm saying? And you got a
You're
lot of
saying that you're saying that there's artists out there when when the information age, the digital age started really
they're
started
lying.
coming on board, and people were posing like they were hitting the trains, like they were in the yards, like they were racking paint, like they were making
Yeah.
markers with Garvey ink, and it was all BS. They didn't do none of that stuff.
And I
In other
caught
words, they
one.
didn't put in the work that our generation did. That's what you're saying.
I caught one writer. I'm not going to say his name, but I caught him, and I got a little info on him, and I was like, "Yeah, you were doing trains at 4 years of age," and I think I posted that comment on Instagram, and ever since then, I haven't heard a peep out of him. He was quiet, but there's a lot of them like that, man. There's a lot of people. I'm gonna be honest. There's a lot of people that put in a lot of work and don't get that credit. And you got these posers, with like, don't get me wrong, you know what I'm saying? And I know people get older, and they put in their work and they do their walls and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a fan of the art form, and it's nice to see like T Kid and Scheme, the actual ones that put
Right.
in work. You know what I'm saying? Because when they share their stories, it's real. And you got a lot of people out there that are straight lying.
Well, you got those that put in the work, whether it be in Manhattan or Brooklyn or Queens. You got folks like Jaws, may he rest in peace,
Easy,
Easy,
Josh
um,
5, TK,
Sen
Ties,
4,
a whole
right?
list.
Yeah, Sen 4. How about Fib, right? How about Trap, right?
Yeah.
Eastern Fame, another guy,
And Seven Trap is still putting in work.
Adam from the South Side. Shout out to them. LOC crew, right? Demon, um, just all these folks have been out there. Map, right, with the big M's and stuff.
Yeah.
You got a whole lot of folks. I remember when TKA, that the Korean, what was it, the Korean kid, TK,
Yeah.
the Korean artist TKA. He did
That
his
was he
teeth
was
sideways and then
my
laying down.
yeah.
The was like sideways. Folks like that just come out of nowhere and start hitting hard in Manhattan. And going toward Nostrand Avenue in Flatbush, I see Dimer up a lot. Astro is killing stuff.
Oh
Killing
man,
it.
I
Killing
would
it.
I would travel
Astro, man.
from East New York all the way down to Bay Ridge and take Eastern Parkway. That's all you saw. I saw was Astro, Fogs, Nam, Astro, Fogs, Nam, OS,
OS.
and even
OS. Yeah.
buy
How
from
about
Fuck.
Buy, right? Fuck crew. How about
Buy from Fuck Crew
Gano?
was all over
You
the
ever
place.
see CANO up, Gano? He used to be up a lot too.
Yeah.
That was the
You
period
had
with him,
CE,
RIM. He used to
you
be up.
had CE, Night, All City, you had a lot back in them days. Now those they were the pioneers of street bombing that time.
Yeah.
Dom's KOC. Uh, if I miss anybody, but you had a lot of people that were there. You know what I'm saying? And then it's just you have, I don't know, like I like the older stuff, man.
Yeah, things
I like
change.
the older.
Well, now that we're here in 2025, before we wrap up this interview, number one, what do you want to get off your chest? What is it that you want to leave to folks that are coming across this interview, U5 News Flash, and like, man, who's this Sonar guy? And they're listening to your story. You know, you brought up through the system, foster care, you know, served your country honorably in the U.S. Marine Corps. Now you're residing out there in Texas, you know, with your family, whatnot. And so for the folks that are, you know, just getting involved with graffiti, you know, what do you want to tell these folks?
Work hard, and you can get out of it, man. Don't be a victim to your environment, and people that come into your lives. Just if you don't have a family, you know what I'm saying, embrace the family that you do get afterwards, and you succeed like that. I just want to say a couple of names
Sure.
before I leave off and stuff.
It's you. This is all you, man. It's all you.
Can you turn on the light so I could? I would like Dean 70s at 7DS, CS1 TFK, Ilsic, Audi Arc, Buy from Fuck Crew, Skate, Ice, U5, Moyo, U5, GR, NAG, Faint MSD, ROC, MSD, Cert Top, Ray BWH, Rusk TA7, KI U5, Lore U5, Keck, BBAOT, Tech, Mech 5, Crier, Bucho, Brash, Rolio, The Crazy Squad, Chester, GZ, Stacks, Yo, Nam, Fogs, OS, and Tag, TNC, JLo, YNN. And for the ones that didn't make it, Soni, Slick, Ass, Zexer's brother Mello, Bruce, DG, SO, Zan, EX, BKA, Siege, SF, Is TMB, Joke Top, Heck 398, Arion, and my Long Island brothers, Rod, Zare, A-Bomb, Jinx, Maine, Pound, Kohler, Def 3, and the crews I was down with in that era was TFK, RNS, SIC, BBK, U5, SDT, NSK, BFC, DFB, MSD, HRT, The Crazy Squad, and TMB and stuff. So I leave it like that. I didn't want to miss nobody.
Yeah, and also rest in peace. We just lost another great one, Fuzz. Fuzz one.
And shout outs to SAR TMB. He's out in Arizona.
Really? Well, that's a lot, man. Well, I want to thank you, Sona, for sharing with all of us, your upbringing, from Puerto Rico here to U.S. and in the military, sacrificing your time and also protecting our country and our way of life, being involved with the U5 family and all those other crews, like SIC crew and all the others. So it's a lot. It's a lot. You covered a lot of ground. It's a lot of folks from different areas, different neighborhoods. There's not too many people that have that background, running into and being a part of all these different lives and how it's like one big web. Like one big web. So thanks for your time. I appreciate that. We hope you come back. We're gonna have a special. We're gonna have a special U5 News Flash in December, and we want to bring you back. And this time, I'm going to be inviting all the previous interviewees to that one session. So everyone that I've interviewed from U5 Newsflash #1 all the way up to the present, we're going to invite them all back, and it'll be kind of like the Hollywood Squares. And, just to touch base and bring in the new year, 2026, in a positive way, man. But this is rated U5 Newsflash once again, number 17. Sona
I forgot
U5.
3 people. I forgot 3 people. Shout out to GA, Rad, and True.
GA U5 Press Chapter 4, his brother Rad, the ruler Rad, and Troop U5 Press Chapter 5. That's what's up. We're gonna go and end this with Zeke. Zeke U5, one of the talented U5 entertainment artists, also known as Zeke with a Z. So look him up.
All right, brother.
Peace.
Peace.
And she turns to me like peep the bus we get it. And realizing I wasn't be busted in it. Cause I ain't no what within it. You bitches is less whatever win. I would be running this shit that hug with you let. I fucking miss you every second. My heat in the bricks quick. Now be honest when I see you.